Hey folks, how are you doing today? I know I ask you that all the time, but I sincerely mean and ask, how are you? I hope everything's going well. I do have an important question. Do you feel secure? Do you feel safe? I'm not talking about from home invasions or anything like that. I'm talking about cybersecurity. If you want to find out what you need to do as far as cybersecurity goes, today is the day to listen to the podcast. My guest is a sought after entrepreneur, speaker, and an executive coach, but she is also a cyber expert, so cybersecurity. Her name is Jocelyn King, and she could be found at jocelynking.com. But let's get right into this and find out what she has to say about staying safe. All right, let's do it. Oh, there is one thing I need to say. If you're a pet owner, please be responsible and have your pet spayed or neutered. All right, now let's do it.
Welcome to Amazing People, Amazing Things with your host, Chuck.
Hackers work 24/7. The bad guys only have to be right once. And so much of it is even bot and automation led that it literally, the attacks can come at you all the time. But the good news is when you're aware of what to look for and when you don't let fear overtake you, and this is where the neuroscience part comes in. One thing I learned about neuroscience is we go into fight or flight mode, right? And that's when we're in our limbic system. And what you want to be doing is being in your prefrontal cortex. That's where our best thinking is. That's where our calm, relaxed, long-term, what's best for everybody, what do I really want in life, positive outlook and everything. That's where all of that resides. Whenever we get afraid, and all I have to do is say the word hacker or cybersecurity to jack up your limbic system and everybody listening to us. And when that happens, and that's what hackers rely on. They rely on fear. They feed on fear. And so, for instance, after the CrowdStrike event, right, with people stranded at airports, they're taking to social media to talk about how they're stranded and they're upset. And so what hackers see the opportunity and they swoop in and then they start texting people. And the texts are coming in saying, hey, we can get you on a flight, we can do this, we can do that, we're going to give you $100 credit. And they are very good at imitating looking official. And so, and people are tired. They've been sleeping in an airport, chair overnight and stuff, and they're with a cranky family. And so you do things that you wouldn't do if you were rested and in the, your normal routine and in the comfort of your own home or work. And what they do is you start turning over information. So people were buying flights, they were getting credit, and they were buying flights on credit cards and getting to the airport and finding out that flight didn't exist.
Yeah. With the fear, that even goes with the FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yes.
Because that was that same thing. You're in fear, but you're also fear of missing out. I'm going to miss out on that flight. I got to get it.
Right.
You're afraid from all sides.
Right. Or I'm going to miss out on the discount. They're offering me this $100 discount, but only today, and it's 8 p.m., so there's only 4 hours left in the day or whatever it is. So there's that sense of you have to hurry and act, and and what's happening is you're then creating an argument inside your head. So instead of you evaluating this person or entity that you're interacting with, you're arguing inside your head. And, it's no different than the people who physically pickpocket or whatever. They distract you. Some of them will even touch your shoulder here while they're taking your Rolex off of your wrist over here because this is distracting your brain from paying attention to this over here. Hackers do the same thing. They just do it online. They do it in chat on your phone, and they distract you so that you don't do your best thinking. And that's when they take advantage of it. And I got into cybersecurity because I was a victim of cyber criminals, or I was a target of cyber criminals, and I ended up turning that around.
And being a victim of this, it can affect you for days, weeks, months, years. It can for a very long time. And if you don't take care of it, you can pretty much say it's like the internet. It's out there forever.
Correct.
Somebody's going to get it, and you're always going to be affected by it.
Correct. And I know people who've just had minor things happen, which are kind of wake-up calls. I've also, interviewed a lot of people who have lost millions, who have had to file bankruptcy, who have had devastating things, happen to them in their finances. And there's certainly a lot of preying on people, especially especially people over the age of 50 are getting preyed on, in catfishing and things like this, and giving away retirement and losing. I met a woman who was a neighbor, and she had lost her home. This home was paid off, and she lost all of her retirement and all of this, and she was losing her home as a result of having believed that somebody was not somebody they were, and going far too far in giving them everything she had. And and there's a formula for this that preys on our compassion and our desire for love and belonging as human beings and stuff. And so it's just a very systematic approach to overcoming your fears and your better instincts and wearing you down, and having you give away more information, and then ultimately more assets.
Is it kind of a mindset change, something about us? I'm just going to use, when I say us, the victims. Do we need to teach ourselves, train ourselves to change our mind somehow, not to become a victim of cybercrime?
There is, and I would say it's not even just online. So a good thing to remember is that 15% of the population has some kind of pathology, right? So sociopaths and highly neurotic and psychopathic people all fall in that. So some of them are going to, rob your wallet or purse, when you're walking down the street or on the subway or getting out of your car. And some of them are doing it online. So it's just good to keep in mind that 1 out of 8 people is up to no good. And when you're just aware of that, you're not treating everybody suspiciously, and you're not starting to live a life where you're not connected to anybody or enjoying your life. But we need to be a little more watchful, and we think, it's a little more of letting people earn your trust rather than be a trustworthy person and still let people show you your trust.
Be cautiously aware and cautiously alert. I guess it's kind of like when we travel, we're told, be alert, be aware of your surroundings. So this would be really about the same thing, right?
It really is, and I'm glad you brought up that model. When I teach people how to protect themselves online, one of the things that I've realized is, I think almost everybody I've met knows that when you go to a city that's unfamiliar, you do not walk down a dark alley at night by yourself. We all know that. But yet we do things like that online because we're not aware of what's the analog for a dark alley online. And just like the way you protect yourself, it's no different than, you could lock all of your windows and have a security system and all of this and leave your front door open while you leave and go on a trip, or your back door, and be completely a sitting duck. You wouldn't do that in the physical world, but we do that all the time in the online world. So once you start thinking of it that way, and thinking of and learning what the equivalent is online, it really takes the mystique of hackers away. It takes the sense that I'm just a sitting duck and I'm going to be a victim at any time. And it really is much more empowering to realize, no, I'm going to be aware. I'm going to learn the basics so that I don't have to focus. I don't have to learn cybersecurity. I don't have to stop trusting people. I don't have to, people who work full-time in cybersecurity and we call them the white hats, which are the good guy hackers. They call themselves the paid paranoids, right? They live in the paranoia. That's very much like the way our intelligence agencies work as well. They're constantly, they're there to protect us from threats, and they're aware of threats all the time, and they live it and breathe it, and they're online first responders, and so they deal with threats all the time, and therefore are called the paid paranoids. Unless you want to go into that line of work, it's the difference between if you were a police officer, dealing with a lot of criminals versus just being an average citizen. Most people don't want to have to become a cybersecurity expert to protect themselves. They just want to feel safe online. So just learning some basics and learning some things that they can do to protect themselves, and then knowing, what do I do if something unusual happens? And
Yeah, like we were talking about as far as the travel thing, you wouldn't be going to a new town and use that example of a dark alley. You wouldn't go, hey, that's kind of interesting. I wonder what's down that dark alley. It's the same thing here. It's you get a link and you don't go, hey, I wonder what that is. I've never been there.
right.
Well, if it looks and sounds funny and you have never heard of it, don't do it.
Well, and sometimes it doesn't sound funny. So here's the thing: you can get, but if you get a text that says it's from your airline, like going back to the thing, right? Or for even better one, from your bank, because I've seen this happen more times than I care to count, and I'd love to teach everybody this one right now. You get something from your bank that there's, funds, an issue with insufficient funds or something, and it says, please call, and you're about to, some checks are going to be returned, or some payments are not going to go through, right? Because very few people use checks anymore, so they're careful about that one. But your payments are not going to go through. First of all, jacks up your limbic system. You're immediately in fight or flight mode, and you're going, I got to deal with this. And you may be suspicious of that, thinking, wait, is this a scam or not? And so what are you thinking? Well, I need to call my bank and talk about them. And a certain number of people are going to leave that text and go to the website and look up the number, or if they already have their bank's phone number in their contacts, they will call it. But because your limbic system is jacked up, far too many people who are very smart and intelligent and have good common sense make the mistake of clicking on the phone number that's in the text.
Yeah.
And then it says, this is Bank of America or Chase or Wells Fargo or whatever institution. And of course it's not. It's the hackers having set up the call with the incoming and answering it and sounding like that. So you're doing the right thing by calling your bank, but I can't tell you how many people do call the phone numbers in the suspicious texts, and that's the weak spot. So it's like, I know enough to be suspicious of the text, but I'm letting my guard down about, no, I'm going to exit this and go to my known good way to contact my financial institution. And that's where that's where those little mistakes become very costly mistakes.
You're right about that, where it's more difficult to see an 800-888 number and know that it's not real. What I do, pretty much exactly what you're saying. If I get it, and I have received messages like that, I look like, okay, well, I've got that number, I've got my bank's number saved. I'm going to call. I use the number that I have.
Yeah.
Even if it's the wrong department, I'll ask for accounting. I say, I got this message. Can you send me?
Right.
And it seems like several times I've done that. They've said, oh, that's a scam.
Yeah.
We're not reaching out to you for anything. That's a scam.
Correct. And then you want to block and report and delete, but they're not connected to the phone number much anyway, but it still helps authorities. So still, please do it. Do a block and report and delete. And, but see, you're doing the right thing. And you could do that 5 times in a row, and then you end up being on a trip and sleep deprived, and you're at hour 22 of your day, and you're hungry and tired, and you're in a foreign situation, and the same thing happens, and this time you're not thinking, and you click, and that's what they count on. That's what they count on, and they make enough money off of the few who do click on it, and what I'm really dedicated to is helping bring that number down.
And it needs to be brought down. You mentioned, folks that are 50 and above. It happens to all of us. And like I said, probably more so with the older population of people, whether it's because we or they don't know better, or more trusting, or something. You see that name, a bank name or something that looks familiar. You're going, oh, that's a legitimate place. Now, I have somebody that's a senior that often contacts me and asks me, hey, I got an email from this place. It says it's from XYZ, a reputable company. Is this legitimate?
Right.
And I say, let me see, take a picture. And I said, no, take a look. It says that legitimate company's name, but it's followed by these other things that have nothing to do, or it'll say accounting at betterbeaware.com/BECU.
Right, exactly.
That it's like, no, 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 no.
You
That's
got to
not their
eliminate
place.
everything before the at and look at what's after the at, because that's
Yeah.
going to tell you. Because no financial institution is going to send you something through a Gmail account or a Yahoo account or any other thing. It's going to have their domain, and even you also have to be careful that it actually is their domain. Like, is it BOFA.com for Bank of America? Or is it some variant of that? And sometimes, and hackers are smart. They're also good at, they could, they look at switching, letters and numbers around so that, they will invert two letters. Most legitimate companies own far more than their one URL, and they buy a lot of them that are potential mistypings and misspellings so that they don't fall into the wrong hands. But even then, you just want to be careful. But you're very smart. That's one of the top 10 things I teach people is don't look at the name that comes in. Look at the address and focus on what's after the @ symbol. And when in doubt, never click on a phishing. And never click on something.
Right.
I mean, I never click on something. I will hover over also to see what is when there's a link like click here, hover over carefully. Do not do not press down. Hover over and see what it says. And again, if it's suspicious, and even then, if it really is your financial institution, it's just always safer. It takes an extra minute, but it could save you years of your life, if not weeks, hours, months, and pain. So just go to your financial institution and log in.
And one
How
thing
long
that
does that take?
is
Less than 60 seconds.
exactly, it's you have a minute, you've got 2 minutes to save yourself a lifetime of hurt.
Right, right.
The one thing too is with cybersecurity and all this stuff that's happening online, I think that we all ourselves, the victims, need to do our due diligence to
Okay,
where if
I
we
just
do,
we're targets. We don't.
we're targets.
We're not.
Okay,
We're not going to be victims. We're just targets. So there you go.
thank you. Yes. So us as the targets, we need to do our due diligence as well. If we sign up and register for something, remember to cancel. If you're no longer going to use it, you need to close out that account. And I could be wrong, but the reason I'm saying this is I was hacked on a social media account and it got shut down completely. But then all of a sudden, they got into 231 of my online accounts. And I was like, 231? What? And I took a look. A lot of accounts I no longer use were there. And all that information is tied back to maybe your main email.
Right.
So that's why I say that you need to, as a target, as the person, you need to do your due diligence to cancel, close out accounts if you're no longer going to use it, because it could be sitting out there for anybody to hack into and then get your information, because it may be tied to a lot of other things.
Yeah, and in fact, I teach people don't even try to protect your information like social security number and stuff. Instead, act as though it's already been sold thousands of times on the dark web and protect yourself from it being used against you. That's what you want to focus on in this day and age. But you bring up a really good point about that. One of the ways, now, if somebody hacks into your AAA account, the worst that could happen is they might get a free tow. So it is the most important thing is if you do nothing else. And I say this because I have 280 some passwords, and they're all unique, and I keep them all, separate and protected. But you really want to make sure you're protecting your financial accounts and your accounts that have, and your medical records and your the things that you value most. One way to think about it is, where would I feel the most pain if I were hacked? And start with those. Now, it's best practice to do all of them, but most people don't get a password manager or set up unique passwords. They don't get started because the entire task of every account they have is too overwhelming. So I just say, if you do nothing else, just the top 10 to 20 accounts that are about your finances, your retirement, your personal information, all of that. Make those unique. Use a password manager for those. And let the others go. And then do them in waves. Do batches of 10 at a time. Take a Wednesday evening or a Saturday morning and do another 10. But if you do nothing else, you want to get those passwords. And on those accounts, all of those offer two-factor authentication, which is where they're going to ping your phone with a code. Do that, because the likelihood of the hackers also being able to get a code on your phone is extremely rare. So that is your best verification process. And again, it's to protect yourself. You've worked hard for the assets that you have in those accounts. You just work a little bit harder to protect them.
I want to make a comment about the two-factor authentication because my account that was hacked had a two-factor authentication on it.
Okay.
But my mistake was that my second authentication was an email, a different email, and I did not authorize or set up for the phone.
Correct.
So,
Thank you.
you know,
Yeah, because it is the phone, and that's what you have with you, and that's really, really important because
yeah.
now some people have a problem. I ran into this the other day. I work with people who are have exited companies and are multi-millionaires, and they have a lot of information. And I was working with a very, very smart person, and we're helping her set this up, and she's realizing, oh, that TFA, two-factor authentication, is going to her husband's phone, and he's in a meeting and stuff. So where you do that is important. And another really important thing that you brought up, one way people get into accounts is, what is your recovery email? Right? Like if you have a Yahoo email and a Gmail email and whatever your primary might be besides that, your recovery emails is a weak spot. So again, if you think of your house, and you're going to go away for quite a while, because basically living your life is like going away from your home, because in the digital world, you're not everywhere. You're not present in all those places at once. So, a criminal can come up to a door or a window, and it's like, how easy are you letting it be for them to get in? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. And I say it that way intentionally because some people really, are like, I really want to feel very protected. On a 10-point scale, I want to be a 9. And other people are like, well, I'm okay being a 5, and then I just want to know what to do if something happens. So it's really about your own comfort level, because what's the point of security? For you to feel secure? It's so that you can go live your best life. So taking a few actions so that you get to the level of security that's going to help you know that you're safe enough for your own risk tolerance and have protected your crown jewels. And for some people, that's going to be putting all 287 passwords into a password manager. For others, it's going to be, all right, I got my 10 accounts done. Whichever it is for you, just do that, but do something that's going to make you feel safer. And you're going to relax more in your life. You're going to feel more confident. You're going to feel more empowered. And you're going to have this sense of ownership of your own assets, the same way you do for your physical things that you own, your jewelry, your car, the assets that you possess. The way you protect those, you want to apply that to your digital life as well.
Now, does your forthcoming book, Clear, How to Get Unstuck and Start Living a Life You Love, does that cover some of this stuff that we're talking about as
Second
well?
book coming right after it does. That's where I get into the specifics. And the reason I'm coming out with my Clear method, which is CLEER, it's a 5-step process, is because I use that when I teach people how to protect themselves online, because the first step is clarify what you want. We were just talking about that. How safe are you, but how safe do you want to be? How safe do you want to be, and a loved one in your life may not be the same thing, or how safe your neighbor may want to be is not the same thing. And there's not a right or a wrong, but there is a minimum level. And then also knowing what to do, if you see a breach. Like, we've all gotten those texts of, when you've reset a verification code or a password, you get an alert that you did it. Well, what happens if you're not resetting it and you get an alert? What are you going to do? So just knowing in advance what to do. It's kind of like knowing what to do if there's a fire, right? A lot of us learn stop, drop, and roll or something like that. We're kids. There's an equivalent for online hacking of like, okay, I'm going to contact that financial. No, I'm going to say no, it's not me. If they don't offer you that, you're going to contact them right away and say no, that's not me. And you're going to spend, a couple hours on a weekend or an evening and make yourself safer. So my second book coming out is going to have that. The reason it's not coming out yet is because I've been teaching a lot of people basics of how to protect themselves, and I want to refine it a little bit more. However, if you come to my website, you can sign up for free life safety tips, and I share videos, I share downloads, I share tips that you can do around passwords, around travel, around password managers, and I try to demystify the whole area of cybersecurity because I really started this after I went through my own experience. I thought of my goddaughter and my niece, and they're busy moms working, trying to. They've got a lot to do. They shouldn't have to become like IT experts and cybersecurity certified professionals in order to protect themselves and their families. And I thought, how can I help? What's the minimum simplest English tips that I can give people to help themselves? And that was the genesis of this. And it just kind of took off from there because everybody's saying, oh my gosh, you've got to get this out there. You've got to share this with more. And that's what I'm in the process of doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, using the first world, this is a first world problem, sort of, kind of, but within the first world, so to speak, probably 99.9% of the people use the internet somehow, some way, one way.
Right.
So you are putting yourself in this possible situation. So
Right.
there's nothing better to do than to have preventative medicine, so to speak. And that's exactly what you're doing. Now, Jocelyn, I want to make sure that people know, is this going to your main website, jocelynking.com?
Yes, at jocelynking.com, you'll get information about my forthcoming book, which is more about how to get unstuck in your life. And it's more mindset focused of getting clear on what you really want in life so you can live your best life. I'm a life coach and an advisor to CEOs and executives and things like that. And I've been a co-founder of a top 10 cybersecurity company and was named a top 10 woman in cybersecurity. And I got there from having been devastatingly hacked and had cyber criminals target me. And they even broke into my home. They were able to get through my network. They were able to unlock my system, and they broke into my home. And I wasn't aware of when they'd gotten into my home. And then realizing I had been violated was when I found a microphone in my ceiling.
Wow.
And going through that experience and feeling so violated and feeling so powerless, I was like, I've got to figure out how to protect myself. And it was terrifying. And I was able to do that. I ended up talking to the sheriff, calling the FBI, and unfortunately, there's just under 1 million reports to the FBI every year of cybercrime. So they're so inundated. And unfortunately, you go there thinking, okay, good, I'm going to get help. And not that they're not helpful, but you basically find yourself in the red tape of filling out forms. And that's also a shock because you're thinking, I'm going to get help. They're going to find these bad guys. They're going to get my stuff back. They're going to help me. And at that point, like even with the microphone, they couldn't find what it was connected to. We couldn't trace it to the individual. So you can end up feeling more demoralized and actually feeling a little more protected. And it's no aspersion on our law enforcement. They're incredible at what they do, but there's such an incredible volume and there's such big fish to fry too that, if you've had, you aren't necessarily going to get the help that you think you need. And so it's, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as my grandmother used to say, and that's a good advice. So you want to take care of yourself. But when all of that happened to me, I thought I was looking for the book. It was like, well, how do I prevent this from happening? And it didn't exist. And I said, well, then I'm going to write it. And through the course of learning about cyber security and how to protect yourself, I met some really, really smart people in this area. One of them was a former head of security and security technology at Microsoft. Another one was protecting trillions of dollars on the on Wall Street. And I learned over a 3-year period all about, the dark web and hackers and hacktivists, and there's different kinds of hackers. There's the ones who are sitting somewhere with all they need is an internet connection and a smart device, whether it's a computer or even a phone, and they're gonna try to hack into people because they can make a lot of money doing it. And then there's government entities and and hacktivists and everything else in between. So I learned all that, but that was a lot. I invested thousands of hours into learning all these things, and the average person isn't going to do that. So I wanted to distill it down to, in simple English, not cybersecurity ease, what are steps to take, and what are the most important steps to take, and that's what I'm doing. And so that book will be coming out around the end of the year.
Okay. A question, because like you mentioned, sometimes it's difficult for law enforcement to track where this physical thing, a camera or a microphone is going to. I see a lot of commercials now about VPN. Put a VPN on your network or whatever you're connected to. Does that help?
It does. Think of a VPN like a tunnel, though. So you still got the endpoints. You can get into a tunnel. So it is helpful, but it's not the only. If it's the only tool in your toolbox, you're still more vulnerable than you want to be. So yes, it is helpful. It's the more you can do to create a bubble around yourself in some way, the better off you are. In cybersecurity, we call it your attack surface. So your attack surface is the digital analog to your doors and windows. Okay, the odds of somebody breaking into your house by crashing through a wall is not high. It's possible, but not high. But it's your doors and windows that are your weakest links, and that's the analogy for online. And every door and window you have in your home is your physical attack surface. Every password and account that you have online is part of your attack surface. And so that's why something as simple as inventorying them all. And and when I started this, I didn't know I had 267 accounts. It was over time. When I realized, I thought, well, maybe I have 100, and when I was over 100 getting close to 200, I was like, wow, okay, here we go. But, but every app, and it's not just the stuff you have now. As you said, it could be things you had previously. So, but really resetting your passwords, getting a password manager that auto generates a password for you. I'm a fan of 1Password. There's also NordPass and LastPass, and there's several of them. But I know a lot of people who use 1Password, and then you literally just remember 1Password and you change it every 3 months, and all of your passwords are kept in there.
When I was this last time when I was hacked, it put the scare in me. So I saved nothing online for passwords or anything. This is my
Perfect.
password. It's my Bible.
There-
I have everything. I shouldn't be sure. I have all of them are in here.
Yes.
And then I go through, scratch it and change it, put the date when I change. So I know it's crazy.
No,
It's
that's actually a best practice.
but
And everybody I know who's in crypto does this, and you really have to in crypto, because if you don't, you get wiped out. So anybody who has crypto, you don't put that online in any form. So you're doing the right thing. The challenge is, it's like here for me, like I'm coming to you from, I'm not in my home, I'm traveling, and I'm staying in Airbnbs and hotels, and so having one hard copy with everything in it while I'm traveling, it puts my risk higher because of a bag stolen or this or that. And so there's a right answer for everybody, what's going to work best for you. But what you're doing is a very smart thing. Also, having it offline like that, that's the other trick of making sure you have backups offline of things that you like, because another big threat to people is ransomware. And if you have copies of all of your photos that matter to you and your records that matter to you, and you have an offline copy of that you put on a storage device, and you keep it separate so it can't be hacked into by them getting access to one of your accounts and taking over your computer, then it is, you can, when you get a ransomware attack, you can say, well, go pound sand because, I have what I need. It's the people who aren't prepared for it where they're like, oh my gosh, this really valuable thing to me, whether it's personally sentimental, like pictures of you and your family when you were a kid that you never, took off, or really important legal documents, or the other thing could be if you have things that are that you would be uncomfortable if they got out, if they were shared, that can be used against you, right? So some people have photos that are compromising or things like this that they don't want to get out. Those are that, just think through, if somebody got a hold of everything and found the things that matter most to me, and we're looking at how to use them against me or hold me for ransom with them, what would I not want to have on there? And then just reverse engineer it. Again, this is all common sense, but it's kind of like buying life insurance or starting to save for retirement when you're 18 years old. Most people say, I'll do it later. And what I recommend is do an hour this week. Do an hour this week. Set up your two-factor or multi-factor authentication. And then next week another hour. Get a password manager. List out all your financial accounts, and then think of any other accounts that are really important to you that have to do with your medical records, things around real estate. Add those to, in the following week. Do another hour. If you did think of that. I'll even give you 2 weeks off for vacation. That's 50 hours in a year. You're going to get 12 hours worth of work done in a single season or quarter. That alone, and especially if you're a small business owner. I want to say that particularly because small businesses are such a huge backbone of American life and our economy, and it's somewhere around 70% would go out of business if they had a ransomware attack or a major phishing event. So if you've worked so hard to build up your business, these are also the people who don't have, because they don't have the resources to have the best cybersecurity, and they are so busy getting new business and servicing existing business that they say, I don't have time to do this stuff. But they're the ones who are most targeted, and a ransomware attack could end your business. And so when you think about it in that context, then an hour a week for 6 months does not seem like too much of an investment to protect and defend this wonderful business that you've created for yourself. And the same applies to your personal memories and everything else. So everybody listening to us right now, Chuck, has something they value. And I just say, make a list and then just keep it. And if you just do an hour a week until you get to your comfort level, that could be in 90 days, it could be in 6 months, but you're going to be noticing this empowerment and this shift. And if you're not sure what to start on, I have a checklist that I'm putting out, because October is National Cyber Awareness Month, so I'm going to be dropping a lot of tips in the month of October. And I can give you ideas and stuff. This is all free, public service announcement stuff that I'm doing because it's what I'm dedicated to, helping people.
Okay. Now, folks, once again, you want to go to Jocelyn's website, and it's just Jocelyn King, so JocelynKing.com, correct?
Correct. Thank you, Chuck. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I kind of want to dial back a little bit and go back to we are targets, but if we fall victim, and because I know somebody that this has happened to, and then they called me to ask me. I'm not a cybersecurity expert or anything, but if you happen to fall victim and then you push that number to call, don't be afraid to ask a question and say, I'll call you back, hang up and call your actual financial services or whatever, and not that phone number, just to double check. Is that something safe? Would you say that's an okay way of handling it?
Yeah, you're talking about if you have an incoming call?
Yeah, if you have an incoming, or if you actually dialed out and then they're telling you, hey, we need to get this information from you, we need your social security.
Right.
It's okay to ask a question to anyone.
Correct.
But I told this person, well, I hope you hung up and then called your bank and then ask them. And they said, no, I gave them the information.
Yeah, I had that happen, and a woman who had received a large inheritance of over $100,000 had this happen, and it was just through the intervention of her sister that it didn't get wired out of her account. You know, within an hour would have been gone. So it is, you know, timing is critical, and always if there's, now, so if you've gone to their website and you've called their known good phone number and you're on with a legitimate agent, and they're asking you for things, then you're doing the right thing. But if you're calling a number that you saw on another website, you know, I mean, like I love Reddit, but even on Reddit, somebody could post something, you know. Now it would get taken down pretty soon because they have a pretty active community. But any you know, board postings or in Facebook groups in particular, you should be just take the advice that you should call and ask about this, but don't take the advice of calling that number. It's worth looking it up. You know, we have the internet at our disposal on our phones, in our hands, for heaven's sakes. We live in the most efficient time ever. So just going to your browser, searching for the, you know, the known good website, getting the known good phone number, and then while you're at it, add that to your contacts so that you have it. But yes, if anything's making you uncomfortable, I went through this not too long ago with with my mobile carrier. They were asking me for the last four of my social, and I could tell I was talking to a call center overseas, and I'm like, I don't want to give that out, even if it's in there. So I was going to call in, and I actually ended up being in cybersecurity. I ended up writing a note to their head of IT saying, you know, it's too easy for agents to be writing this down on a post-it under their desk, you know, and taking it up with them. I've literally, I talked to a veterinarian whose business was wiped out because his office, you know, front office receptionist who worked for him was a really nice young woman, but her boyfriend was a no good criminal, and he got access to all of this, all the veterinarians' clients' credit cards, and did this huge charge up and everything. And he ended up going out of business over it. And that's the other thing. One of your weakest spots is things like, you know, any business that you give your credit card information to. So here I am dealing with a very large, one of the top 5, you know, known good carriers, and they're doing things in a way that is not cybersecurity best practice, and that's bothersome. But then you've got the small businesses, and you know, that you want to frequent, like your veterinarian and your, you know, and other, you know, in other places, and so it's vulnerable, and that's why two-factor authentication is so important, because you don't know where your card is getting, you know, your card information, credentials are getting stolen from. So you just want to be able to protect yourself.
You know, I know this isn't cybersecurity, but going along with something similar to what you said happened to you, you know, there have been times in the past where I received a call, and then they would say, okay, we need to verify who you are. Can you give me your social security? I'm thinking, you called me. And then, that's what I'm thinking in my head. But I've done well, isn't there a different way that I could verify who I am with you? Because if you have all the information, I don't want to give you my social security number.
Right.
And some institutions, some places did that. Others they didn't. And I can't remember what I think I just said no, thank you.
So here's something that I do, and this is where I get to bring my life coaching part of me into the conversation here. You are now all officially deputized as CEO of your own life. And you get to, if you're not comfortable with something on a call or in person, you have every right to say, to stop it. So one thing I do, especially on the incoming calls, when they say, well, we need to verify your identity, I say, great, first I need to identify yours. Please tell me your name. And I start asking them, and they hang up. The good news is, this is how you get rid of hackers. They hang up on you because you're asking them more questions. I've been hung up on by hackers more than I've ever been threatened by them. They're not that complicated. They have a formula and they have a script and they're going off of it. And so, you know, you just turn the tables on them. So, you know, and even if they gave me their name and stuff like this, I'd say, okay, great. Well, I'm going to call back the main number and verify and get back to you, and what department are you in? I'm going to get back to your department going through the main number. And then you go through that.
I love the fact that you said that, in your life coach, you tell people you are the CEO. You are the CEO. You are the business owner of your life. Handle it like a business kind of thing. So that's actually really great because, yeah, if I was running a business, I'm here to keep it safe.
That's right.
I'm going to keep myself safe.
That's right.
Now, is there an area in cybersecurity or in hacking that is more vulnerable, meaning social media or banks, or is it all kind of the same?
You know, it's all got different levels of vulnerability. When I
Okay.
talk to people who aren't cyber, I can understand why when you're not in cybersecurity, you're kind of going, how does this happen? How are they getting in? How are our corporations failing us? Is kind of the big question. So here's the truth statistics. A little over 80%, 80% of businesses, including large corporations, have communicated that they have had an attack of some kind of a leak of data, and some of it's worse than others. Some of it is everything. It's your name and address and social security number and stuff. And a lot of times, people who are doing cybersecurity are trying to keep information in separate databases so you can't connect the dots on everything without having, the right access codes and stuff. But the bottom line is the average corporation has hundreds of pieces of software that they use, and they all interconnect, in some way. It's like, it's like building a giant tinker toy, almost like, kind of connecting things. And each of those has updates and patches, and at any given time, something can come in. And, the biggest threat to our companies are actually the employees. I think it's roughly a third. These are not the exact numbers, but just for your audience's sake, it's easier to remember this. It's roughly a third are innocent clicks on phishing. You're inside your company. I was at a very large Silicon Valley company when the FBI came calling to say that we had been hacked and all of our IP had been taken by a foreign country. It was traced back to somebody who clicked on a Yahoo email but had the name of their boss on it, just like you were describing earlier, Chuck. And it was an innocent mistake by a very busy person who was working very diligently and hard, and it literally could have brought down the company. So you've got that. That's a third. Another third is actually malicious insider threat, and that's when you've got workers or contractors who come in and they're trying to actually steal information so that they can sell it. And a lot of people, especially people who are very tech savvy and are more gamer and software oriented, the dark web's nothing mysterious to them, so they can get on and sell and make some money. One trend that's happening now is that hackers are targeting employees through social engineering and actually offer them, they're wanting to exchange credentials. They're wanting to get credentials so that they can hack in, and they say, and we will give you 60%. So we, the hackers, are only going to take 40% of the loot, and you're going to get 60% of what we're able to sell it for. So that's a new technique that's arising. So it's insider intentional threat to companies. And then the other third is just through that random of they're just able to get in. There are hundreds of thousands, I can't remember the exact number because it's so staggering. But it's literally, I think, I can't remember the exact number, and I'm going to have to look this up and bring it back to you. But think of the average company getting 100,000 attacks every day on their system because they're automated and they're bots and they're being attacked from everywhere in the world, the Middle East, the Midwest, you name it. And it's a constant barrage. So when you look at the sheer magnitude of the situation, we're actually doing a very good job. However, things are still getting leaked and they're still out there. And that is why you have to protect yourself assuming that your information's already been compromised and stolen. Now you're not trying to protect the information, you're trying to protect it being used against you. And I'm not saying don't protect your information, but
Right.
that horse got out of that barn a long time ago. So you want to protect it from further leaking, but like your social security number, assume it's been sold 1,000 times. So how could it be used against you? So freeze your credit records, because when your credit records are frozen, it is not hard. When you're applying for a car, you go into apps or even into your browser, you go to each of the 3 credit unions and you click on unfreeze credit record for 1 day. They get in, you get your car. It's not a big deal. And by the way you get reminded is they say, oh, we're trying to run a credit check and we can't get it, because you'll have forgotten that you froze your credit, because it's that easy. And you're like,
Yep.
okay, I'll go in and unfreeze it. Do you need all 3 or just 1? You do it and you're protected. And in the meantime, you're not getting alerts that the loan that you took out 6 months ago is past due on payments. And you're like, what loan? And then you find out that because you did not freeze your credit, people took out loans in your name. And I've met too many people who have had to file bankruptcy, and because it was too long ago, they couldn't prove what they had or hadn't done, and there was just too much damage. Timing is really important. The closer to the event that you are when you're taking action to recover, the more you're going to recover and the less damage it's going to do.
This is all really good information, and I'm glad to know that I'm following a lot of what you said. In fact,
Sure, good job.
I have frozen. I've closed the 3 of the
Of the credit freeze.
credit bureaus. Credit, yeah. Those are all frozen.
Great.
So,
Awesome. That's great. Hey,
but now if I need to go buy a car,
well, there's an added tip. You're not opening an extra credit card to buy something on impulse. So
exactly.
you get even more. You got to keep even more of your money, because you're like, I'm going to think twice about that. So you prevent frivolous impulse buys. Let's put it that way.
Again, this is all really, really important.
Yes.
Very, very good information, important. And I also like the fact that you say, don't think that it's not already out there. Think of it as it is already out there. Now, what am I going, to do to prevent it from going any further type of situation? So,
Right.
because chances are likely it's already out there.
Yes. Yes. That's right.
So,
This is great conversation, because it's so important, and it's one of those things that I want people to be thinking of protecting themselves in life proactively rather than reactively, because I got into this by being on the reactive side. Well, actually, I had put protections in place, but I hadn't. Again, the bad guys only have to be right once. So if you leave your front door open and you're locking all your windows, you're still likely to have a problem. So it's really important that people proactively, and think about that, an hour a week, or an hour every other week. I mean, but something. And I'm going to challenge everybody here, because October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So you can get a jump on it by starting to do some things now, so that by the time it comes around, you can be saying with pride, oh yeah, I already froze my credit. Oh yes, I've already set up 2-factor authentication. Oh yes, I already got a password manager and put my top 10 to 20, accounts in there. And so that at least the red bullseye, and the surrounding area of your dartboard is protected, so that you're not wearing a big target on your back and waiting to be a victim.
yep. I was going to ask you for a closing statement, but you already gave it, and that's perfect because, again, what I'm just going to reiterate with what Jocelyn just said is, I know it can be a daunting task for you to spend 5 hours to protect your entire life, and a lot of people won't do it. So do as Jocelyn says, take it in chunks, bite size. Spend that hour. If you're going to say, I don't have an hour, of course you do. All right, spend 30 minutes or take blocks. If you know you've got 100 email or accounts out there, take it in blocks of 10. It's easy enough to do. So,
And if you want to do it in a group setting, I'm going to do a little challenge during National Cyber Awareness Month. So if you sign up, you can be doing it with a large group of like-minded people who, by the end of October, want to live safer, better lives. So you can do it in a supported environment where little instructions are being served up to you, so you don't have to be overwhelmed by it. And it's kind of a gamification. You can be like, oh, an empowerment. It's really an empowerment for everybody.
There you go, folks. It's an empowerment, it's a challenge, and it's free.
Yes.
Remember, just go to jocelynking.com. Jocelyn, thank you for saving us all.
Oh, well, thank you, Chuck. And I love your show, and it's an honor, a privilege, and a lot of fun to be on with you and your listeners. Thank you so much for the opportunity.